If I took a beginner trader and I would show him or her the top 10 mistakes that they could potentially be making when they're about to trade, I would say that with 99.999% certainty that they will make every single one of those mistakes when they trade. Because sometimes being aware, just being aware of a certain thing that is bad for you does not mean that you will stop from doing it. Sometimes we call it addiction, right? So addicts, they know that something is bad for them. They still do it. They know the consequences of it, and yet they can't stop. We all have that certain tendency when it comes to trading of being aware of mistakes, being aware of sometimes what's the right thing to do, and sometimes we do entirely the opposite. Look, I'm not Sigmund Freud. I don't want to even pretend that I'm a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't know. I've been dealing with traders for 20 years. I talk to them and I just share what I think could potentially help you. I'm not an expert in addiction, and I'm not an expert in instilling discipline in one person, but here's what I do believe. I believe that the more traders are aware of common mistakes and they see it as a pattern, I truly believe that it could help someone out there to say, okay, I'm making those mistakes, but these are mistakes. This is not just individually me. There is something inherent in our behavior when it comes to money, markets, trading, decision-making, fear, greed that makes us act in a certain way. So again, just because we don't feel comfortable with it, or we know the consequences are bad, it does not mean that we will not implement it in the midst of a certain time in trading, right? And why does it happen? I think it happens because the brain has something called a control center. And the control center is fine with your mistakes because the things that you do are making the control center feel good. They're bad for you, but it's making your brains feel good. So, look, everybody has done something they know or suspected that it's going to be wrong in trading, right? They know that the consequences would lead to a financial loss. They know that it's not good for them. Sometimes they even feel guilty doing it, and then they do it anyway. And they suffer, and then they feel crushing shame, and they swear that they'll never, ever, ever do it again. And then, after a short burst of redemption behavior, well, guess what? They do it again. So, just understand the way we are programmed as traders, right? So, when I say that, I want you to understand that also I'm not talking being superior to you in terms of my decision making. I'm not. Just like everybody else, I am a mix of rationale and emotions and everything else. But I truly believe that the level, like I said before, that there's a certain level of consciousness that if people are aware of this behavior and they know that statistically 99% of the people act this way and it's not good for them, and that's why a majority of the people are not Carl Icahns or they're not, Warren Buffett's of the world or John Simmons, from the Renaissance Fund, is because the majority of us, it's very hard to instill the discipline within us. So what I'm sharing here with you today is because I have over 20 years of talking to traders, right? And I will tell you that I spoke to some traders that have made a lot of money in their trading career, and then they lost it all because of one flaw in their personality. Actually, I just spoke to somebody like that not long ago. Super nice guy, super intelligent, but there was always something out there that he said that he makes this mistake of at some point being overly happy and going to leverage and going into the market with some big position. And he knows that it's bad for him. And he just keeps on repeating it over and over again. And so in this podcast, right, you probably want me to tell you at the end of the podcast, well, how do you solve this problem? The truth is, I don't know. I really don't know. I think there's tons of books about behavior changes and habits and how we go about them. They go into really very, very deep psychological issues that each one of us could have individually, not necessarily as a group. But it's kind of interesting that when it comes to the market, regardless of where we come from, regardless of our IQ, regardless of our background, we all do the same mistakes over and over again. The only thing I could say is this. In order to overcome a certain mistake, I could only speak for myself, about myself, right? So I'm just going to use myself as an example. You might want to do something like that or not, but I write down all the possible things that could be the consequence of my mistakes. Not necessarily the mistake itself, but when I make mistakes, it's like, why did I make this mistake? What was the thought process at the time that led me to it? What could I have done at the time, to make it better? Some of the things that I've realized over the years is that one thing that I said to myself is this. When it comes to the markets, you cannot just look at one trade and feel that that one trade is your entire destiny, that it's your entire world. You have to ask yourself the question of, is it worth, being in some big colossal loss, right now when you have potentially a lot of opportunities in the future, right? That's a rhetorical question. So that's one of the tools that I've used in order to overcome, some not so good behavior. Now, I will tell you this, I never had a destructive behavior. I never had a behavior that I really needed professional help outside. But I will tell you that the area of trading led me to reading a lot of books about psychology, decision making, anxiety, because I really truly believe that there's a lot of people out there that are not capable of pulling the trigger because they have anxiety issues. It's not lack of money, really. It's not their financial situation. It's not the fact that they don't have risk capital. It's just they can't pull the trigger because of their personality. Some majority of them can't overcome it, unfortunately, from my experience. I mean, or if they do overcome it, they trade very little because they always feel that it's in their knowledge and insufficient. Nothing is enough. They always feel like they're missing something or anything like that. So again, when I spoke to people like that, they're doing that, I always said, okay, well, there's a reason for it. It's not the markets. So one of the things that you'll find interesting, okay, is that if you remove the market components from your behavior, even when it comes to trading during market hours, if you just look at yourself as an individual who is a decision maker, and what drives you, what drives your decisions day to day, that's the level of consciousness that you need when you trade. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Some people, statistically, are not deep thinkers, right? Some of them could be just good traders, and even if they're not so great, they know how to play around with the numbers and the method well enough to improve it in the future. Not everybody needs this deep thought and psychology and everything else. And by the way, when I talk about all those things, it's not, some traders have this thing with, well, think with your heart, and they're looking for some enlightenment as from above of them being a trader, and it's about their independence and this glow and philosophy. That's nonsense. Never mind, not gonna say it. It's poets who turned into traders. That's what it is. And really, they don't have the ability to understand that this is truly a numbers game. It's a lot of work, ethic, behavior, as I mentioned, habits and everything else. Okay, so I have to put a little bit of an end and a summary to all of this right now to kind of give you a direction. First, learn as much as you can about potential mistakes that others are making in trading. I think in this day and age, it's pretty easy. You have forums, and although I don't support all the nonsense that goes on forums, what I do like is that some people are really honest about the struggles they had and the losses they had. And they don't sit there, some of them I should say, don't hype the markets as an opportunity to make money. They look at it as a challenge to make money. And I like those things. Some of them get a little bit overly emotional about their experience, but you could read between the lines and start seeing a pattern out there and saying, okay, I see this guy's making this mistake, this guy's making this mistake, this gal is making this mistake, that gal is making this mistake. And you start seeing a sort of a pattern that everybody in the market, at the end of the day, making, very common mistakes. And it's not always easy to understand what drove them to make that mistake. But if you make that mistake, that's your job. It's your job to figure it out. And it's your job to think about it consciously. And it's your job to eliminate it. Just cold turkey, eliminate it. That's it. There's nothing else you can do. You can pray, sure. You can, hum in the morning. You can do meditation. All those things help. But I think the first thing is just saying, okay, I'm going to trade with rules. And that's the first promise you have to make to yourself. I'm going to trade with rules. Because all those mistakes that people do, I would say that majority of them, and again, everything they say in this podcast is my opinion. If somebody thinks that I'm completely wrong, fine, write it underneath. I'll take it into consideration. But here's what I believe. I believe that most of the mistakes that we do are based on lack of rules. Rules give you freedom in trading. Lack of rules, if you don't have specific rules and you come in the morning and you say, well, I'll see how the market is and then I'll make a decision. That's not a rule. That means that you're leaving yourself open to emotions and intuition. And let me tell you this, there's no such method as intuition. Intuition is something that comes after many, many years in trading. And even then, people use it sporadically in their trading. It's not something that they could completely rely on in trading. So, having said that, I hope it helps you. I hope it opens up your mind a little bit. And I hope it will help you become better decision makers. Because trading is a business of decision making. And I hope it will also help you in your trading. I welcome your thoughts. You can write them underneath. You can comment. Would love to hear from you. And at the same time, if you're looking for a brokerage, please visit our site, www.optimusfutures.com. We have a lot of clearing firms that we work with. We have different technologies to accommodate you, whether you're a beginner or whether you are an advanced trader or you're a programmer and you need API or anything advanced, or if you got to the point that maybe you need just, if you're a portfolio manager, need a hedge account, maybe you have need a CME exchange membership, right? You just do a lot of volume. We can help you with all that, and I'll be happy to, me and my team, to assist you with all that. So I wish you a good day. I wish you a great week. And I'll see you in the next podcast. And please remember, everything I said here, it's just my opinion. Reminding everybody that regardless of your love for trading, there's a substantial risk of loss in futures trading, and past performance is not indicative of future results. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Take care.